posted by user Leave It At That 13. DM kills PC in his introduction and blames it on the character. This is not my story. It happened to an acquaintance. English is not my first language, so I apologize in advance. In this system, CR is made in a way that CR1 is a challenge for the group of 4 level 1 PCs, or for 1 level 4 character. As an example, a level 9 giant spider has a CR2. Encounters are harder but fewer, and reward far more experience. Table began with the group having a minor solo scene for each as they got to the city to meet for the first time. A fighter, a city guard, and had a sparring session outside the city with a fellow guard. Rogue ran and hid after robbing a corrupt merchant. Then came Cleric of the God of War, my acquaintance. They're all level 4. Cleric was camping for the night. Once morning comes, he would only have a few hours of travel to get to the city. The DM then tells him to roll perception, which he does and notices there are 2 wolves reaching him as he apparently camped near a wolf's den. Camping there was preset by the DM. No input from the cleric. Roll initiative. Combat starts. Things are not going great. The wolves, combined, have a CR of 1, which means it is a challenging fight for a level 4 player character. They are both level 2. Second turns begins with a cave wolf, CR2 level 8, the pack's leader, arriving. This is now a challenging and even unfair fight for the whole group. To a single PC, it is a death sentence. In 2 turns, he is dead as he had no chance against an encounter this hard. So Cleric is dead in his introduction. The DM just says, "I thought your cleric was smart and strong, but he camped near a wolf's den and lost in a fight with a CW lower than his level. That was pathetic." Again, level 4 PC against 2 level 2 wolves and a 1 level 8 cave wolf. Cleric said he did not want to play anymore, left the call, and decided to take a break from TTRPGs. Yeah, I'm sorry, I am definitely going to be siding with the OP and the OP actually being, the cleric. The cleric did not have any input on how this whole introduction was going to go out. Then suddenly, lo and behold, the DM is like, "Behold, you actually camped near a wolf's den because you were dumb. And not only that, I'm going to pit you against 2 wolves that are actually stronger than your character, and after you barely survive them, I'm going to have a level 8 wolf attack you. And I'm going to blame it completely on you, even though I set the whole thing up." Wow. Just wow. Definitely a case of no D&D is better than bad D&D. Why hello, travelers and seekers of tales of amusement and entertainment. It is I, the Lunar Skald, here to provide you with stories and fanciful sagas that will satisfy all of your curiosities. For this video, have you ever wondered about what it would be like to have an amazing, wonderful campaign filled with splendor, dashing characters, and simply just all-around amazing storytelling? And then it just gets ruined because suddenly the hero characters feel like murdering each other. Remember how those stories always ended well? Well, anyway, let's actually just quit with the joking and just get into the tale, shall we? Posted by Substantial Rich 3991. A great campaign fell apart when players started killing each other. Not safe for work. Trigger warnings, mention of rape. So, been playing D&D with this online group for 7 sessions until this happened. Setting is DM's homebrew Revolutionary War inspired fantasy, which I was skeptical of at first, but it in fact turned out sweet. It's clearly his love child and well thought out. Think your basic D&D with muskets and a revolution going on. Party is DM, a male human scout rogue, male elf gunslinger, fighter, Matthew Mercer's homebrew, which was approved by all during session 0, female elf divine soul sorcerer, and male bard artificer multiclass. Players are some genders as characters. I wish this wasn't relevant. The central conflict for the session is that the local militia, something fantasy Minutemen, are at odds with the rebels' army, despite these two factions generally fighting at the same side against a third army, because militia/civilians claim a local village has been sacked by the rebel army, while rebel army proclaims that they weren't their men. Now my character is part of the militia, and the fighter is part of the rebel army, so we have a great narrative clash at the start of the session, but in character decide to hold off hostilities and find out more, despite both characters in character convinced their faction is innocent. The party sets out to investigate and splits up. Me and the fighter go to follow a lead, while the bard, artificer, and the sorcerer follow another. Fast forward, the sorcerer and the bard artificer find evidence that the sorcerer's sister, NPC played by DM, apparently with consent and cooperation from the sorcerer, is a minor antagonist who's been undermining rebel efforts. The sorcerer and the bard artificer go to confront her. Well, here the bard artificer says he intends to rape this NPC since her action got a lot of people killed, so it seems at the moment anyways. He's been sleeping around all campaign, but until now always consensually. Sorcerer states she's not okay with this and says they should take her to trial instead, and does a nice bit of describing of her character's emotional reaction to her conflicting loyalties. So during session 0, we went over with what content is fine and what isn't via a survey, and there were no topics that were off limits to any of the players, and nobody flashes their X card either, so until now, so far so good. But the bard artificer accuses the sorcerer of being squeamish and contradicting the rules set at the start of the game. Sorcerer says she's perfectly fine out of character, but in character, her character is not fine with her sister getting raped. Well, that's a very interesting line to draw it. I would kind of think that no matter what, rape is a bad thing and should not be okay. But, alright. Bard Artificer keeps insisting, to me it seemed like he didn't want to lose face by backing down, and the sorcerer says she'll fight him if he tries. They fight, and unsurprisingly, the sorcerer, who's mostly got healing and support spells, goes to 0 HP. She also had the only Revivify in the party. At this point, I and the fighter arrive at the scene since the spellcaster fight was not exactly quiet. Fighter is a lieutenant with the army and has a platoon of soldiers following him. He says he wants to kill the Bard Artificer, and the DM says that as far as he's concerned, the character has means and authority to do so. The fighter orders the Bard Artificer be executed by firing squad for looting, and the NPC soldiers do that, with some brilliant narration from the DM. Meanwhile, the sorcerer's been failing her death saves. The DM relatively blatantly allows me to make a run to the army barracks to fetch a healing potion to save her at the last minute, which my character probably shouldn't have been fast enough to make. Now the Bard Artificer flips. He says the DM is favoring the sorcerer and killing his character when he should have lived, and letting the sorcerer live when she should have died, as well as giving the fighter too much power in form of the soldier NPCs. There was a long story involving with him getting there. Bard Artificer disconnects from the game while his character is being executed. Execution commences, the DM is visibly upset by his turn of events, and everyone just kind of leaves. I haven't spoken to them since, and don't know if the campaign will continue. All this without much red flags prior. Okay, so yeah, I think this one definitely is a really just where the hell did all of this come from? I mean, yeah, it seemed like things were actually kind of fine at first. There was a good conflict, there was an interesting sort of split of the party so that each lead could be followed, and it just kind of ends up going to this because the Bard Artificer feels like rape is a good punishment to make for, I mean, there's just, how do you, I don't even know if you can make this up. Is there a way to make this up? I do not know. But yeah, I think I have already made it pretty clear. I state that no matter what, regardless of the situation, rape is not okay. It is not and it never should be. No sort of explanation should be given, and there is no reason why this position is needed to be explained. But, I mean, he should have at least the Bard Artificer, even more so, should have understood that, hey, this actually is a person that is in relation to a party member of mine. Maybe I shouldn't go starting to bring judgment for something that should be better handled by another character, perhaps. But then there's also the fighter. The fighter having an entire platoon of soldiers under their command. That one definitely seems a bit broken, if I'm being perfectly honest, especially since this could easily be used against another player character, which in this case it was. It was in fact used against another player character, and it did seem a little bit odd just how convenient the timing for fighter was. I mean, I'm not against it necessarily, but it seems like a very weird bit of timing. I mean, at least the sorcerer was able to live, but, I mean, that didn't necessarily matter because, well, the campaign did just kind of go out of the left field. And while I definitely do blame it pretty solidly on the Bard Artificer, I'm also going to have to say that fighter and the sort of solution handling of the fighter was not necessarily the best way to handle it with OP sort of, kind of, consequences. I'm not saying this because I'm defending the Bard Artificer, gods know I would never do that. But really, the way this should have been handled is like, no. Just simply saying no. When there's anything like that going on, just say no. Because a hero character or a player character should not be committing any sort of rape, and that's just, again, I shouldn't have to explain it, but like, it should just stopped right there. Bard Artificer should not have been allowed to make that kind of choice. If he would lower it to killing, fine, but rape, that is a definite no-go in my book. I mean, in all honesty. And I know that probably there might be some groups that are okay with that, and I don't even want to think about those groups. But in this particular case, since people weren't okay with it, or at least they weren't in character, which I still find odd, then I feel like it should have just stopped right there. And that's pretty much what I'm saying. But this story doesn't seem like it's long enough, so wait one moment while I go ahead and find the next story for you. Moving on to the next story. The DM's friend wanted to... my child character. Posted by Misty Teeth. So back when I was 16, I was in a group. I went over my character idea in session 0, and it was agreed that it would be alright and wouldn't have any problems. She was a changeling druid aged at 9 years old. I based her on Annie from League of Legends, even using one of her skins as my token. So everything was fine for a while. My character is taken care of by the group as kind of a little sister. That's until the DM said his friend wants to try out D&D, so will be joining our group. Let's call him Barry. Barry rolled a standard chaotic good rogue human and immediately introduced himself as a playboy. My character was the only girl in the party, and I was the only female player too, so you can imagine where this is going. I ignored the weird comments and trying to hit on my character for a while before we get to a tavern. My character obviously couldn't drink, so asked for some milk. What I didn't know is the DM and Barry were private messaging, and Barry rolled successfully on stealth to spike my character's drink. My character became drunk and his advances got even stronger. Some fellow party members told Barry he was being a creep, which led into an argument before the session finished early. Between that session and the next session, I received multiple DMs from Barry hitting on me. I told him I wasn't interested in him as I was 1, 16 while he was in his 30s, 2, had a girlfriend, ensue the homophobic messages. So we reached the next session. For one reason or another, my changeling turns into an adult version of herself to try to pretend to be her own mother. It was very obvious it was still her due to the way I played her and her distinctive appearance, but Barry decided to try hitting on her once more. She's technically legal now, so it's okay. Later in the tavern, as the party was going to sleep, my character went back to her room. Another player decided from now on, my character wouldn't be left unaccompanied, which I'm glad for. Barry started going off. I'm going to try sneak into OP's room. Chaos ensued. I'm going to steal all of her things. DM allows it. And with a nat 20, all of my character's belongings, inventory, even her teddy bear, was gone. And he sold it off to the Rogues Guild. Another party member questions why he would do that to only my character, and in which Barry responds, because she's metagaming. Both confused and fed up, I quit right then and there. Luckily for me, the other 3 players backed me up and left too. Man, I just wanted to be a little arsonist. Ugh, for fuck's sake. What is it with these people? Why do they think this is okay? And furthermore, why did the DM allow this in the first place? It should have been clearly obvious this was not okay. At all. You probably already know my opinion when it comes to sort of, when players are rolling against other players. That should not be allowed. If you want, I know this is based on charisma, and this makes things a little bit trickier since the rogue was trying to do things sneakily and not entirely charisma-based, but for something like this, the DM simply just should have put a stop to it. But, since clearly the DM was in on this whole creep pedo business, I think, the only thing you can really do is simply just leave. And, I can only hope that, the OP is fine now, and they are no longer dealing with creeps like this, and that they have a happy relationship with their girlfriend. And fuck the pedos, and fuck the homophobes, is all I have to say to end this story off of. But I think that'll be all the stories we have for today, so I hope you all enjoyed this video, or, well, there were some things probably not enjoyable, but hey, at least there are things to learn from, and things to keep in mind for just how bad things can get, and that if those things do happen, you know what to do. But I hope this satisfied all of your curiosities, and if it did, be sure to give that like button a little click. If you want to see more content like this, be sure to subscribe to the Lunar Scald, and be sure to hit the bell as well so you can be notified whenever I make a new video. And until next time, may the Lunar embrace you in its aura as you sleep this fine evening night.